Hi, my name is Monica Main, and I wanted to quickly go over with you how to structure a DPA transaction to where you can actually get a residential, commercial, or a commercial building with no cash and no credit by using a very, very unique system in order to be able to execute a literally no cash, no credit type of deal, okay? So I want to show you a little bit about how to structure DPA. DPA stands for Down Payment Assistance. It's an unofficial term that's used in the real estate industry, and you will not really be able to find a lot of companies that will actually admit to being a DPA company. So it's actually a term that I use that you're not going to find that a lot of other people use. So if you're wondering exactly why I'm one of the only people that use it, it's because it's sort of a term that I have stuck with, but that the industry no longer uses. Now, there are several elements that you need in order to be able to structure this adequately. You need the owner's equity. The equity needs to be the percentage of exactly what your down payment is going to be plus closing costs. You need transactional funds, which are wet funds, which need to be paid back at the close of escrow. And you need proof of funds, which is a different company that could provide proof of funds or seasoned cash to the bank, okay? And so I have to tell you that the reason I would like you to thoroughly understand exactly how this works is because I do have a broker, my main broker, who transacts a number of different types of property deals for my students. And his biggest complaint is that, he doesn't deal with DPA. He cannot know about DPA. And therefore, when you are trying to do a DPA transaction using him as the main means of getting conventional funding, you cannot tell him about this other stuff you're doing. So that's why I am doing this for him on his behalf, without his knowledge, of course, is that this is exactly how you have to transact this type of deal without actually telling him that this is what you're doing, because he's a licensed broker and he does have different ethics that he has to abide by. Not to say that this isn't ethical, but he does have contractual agreements with his lenders to reveal specific details that you, a buyer of a property, might have revealed to him. Okay, so if you don't reveal any of these details to him, then he has no legal obligation or ethical obligation to reveal or release those details to his own lender. And so the reason I want to tell you about the exact circumstances and the exact strategy you're going to be using to transact this type of transaction is because I want you to understand how it's going to work without you revealing the exact details to my specific broker or any other lender you might be using, because they do not like this type of arrangement, okay? So you need to be aware of that. A lot of lenders will want to see that you're putting in your own cash, and if you're not, then they're not going to do the deal for you. They're not going to provide first position conventional funding on your deal, which is, of course, the majority of the funding needed to be able to execute a commercial deal, okay? So the owner's equity, obviously, is that the owner has to have the equity, meaning that this is above and beyond what they owe on their current mortgage. Okay, so if you're getting an 85% LTV or 85% of the purchase price on your property, which you can get through my broker in most states, not all states, then you would need to be putting 15% down plus closing costs plus any due diligence costs, which would include your appraisal or building inspection on your property. Okay, so that would actually be about 15% plus about 10% of the purchase price. You would get a buyer's repair credit that would go in as a request on the addendum to the offer, or you could put it in on your initial LOI or offer, or you could put in your initial LOI or offer that you're going to be coming up with that figure at a later date, and that you don't have the specific buyer's repair credit request amount ready yet, okay? So that's what's going to be one of the elements that you need. Then you need transactional funds, which are partial transactional funds or wet funds, which you can get from just about any transactional funding company, which you could do an internet search for, and many will come up. They will cover the down payment as cash, as if it's your own cash. So when you're running your offer or your LOI, you're going to indicate that you're putting down 15% cash of your own money, and you're going to then ask for an 85% LTV on the first position conventional loan. The partial transactional funds, this is not a loan. So these funds need to be paid back at closing, and this is where the buyer's repair credit comes in, which again has to be in the amount that at least the current owner has in equity. Otherwise, if they're completely up to their eyeballs in debt service on the property, or they're upside down, you cannot make this kind of deal work, okay? Then there are proof of funds. There are a lot of proof of funds companies online. they are not tied to a transactional funding company, so you cannot get proof of funds generally from a transactional funding company. You actually have to go to a separate company altogether, and again, you type in proof of funds on the internet and you'll come up with several different companies that will provide you with the service. Do not get proof of funds until the lender requests it, okay? These are seasoned funds that are going to look like they are your own funds out of your own bank account, but you will not have access to these funds, and this is, again, not a loan. And again, do not get the proof of funds until the lender asks for it, and it's going to be for the amount of your down payment, whatever that may be. If you specified 15% plus closing, then it needs to be 15% plus closing. If you specified 25% plus closing, then it needs to specify that as well, okay? So here's how it works. You're going to get, for example, using my specific broker, you get 85% LTV on a first conventional loan. And then you would get 15% for your cash payment, cash down payment, and then you need 10% in closing costs. As you can see, this is more than 100%, but 10% is generally the high amount of closing costs. Always ask for the seller to pay for closing costs in a seller concession. You can also ask them to pay for your appraisal and your building inspection as well, and this will definitely knock down your closing costs to about half of this, okay? So always ask for that. Not that they'll always give it to you, but ask for it just to be able to get this figure down quite a bit, okay? And then finally you have your buyer's repair credit, which obviously is going to be your wet funds that have to be paid back at the close of escrow, which is your down payment, your cash down payment. The owner puts in their equity in the form of a buyer's repair credit, and basically they're giving up their equity in the form of a buyer's repair credit. And of course, after the close of escrow, you can actually pay this back to the owner if you have a private mortgage contract, which again, the lender doesn't know anything about. This is a private agreement that you have, okay? So I just want to show you how easy it is to make this work. Here is a copy of my cash flow evaluator, which I'm going to move the screen over just a tad. And I'm going to basically show you exactly how to work this into a deal. I pulled this particular listing off LoopNet. We have 5.5 million. So I'm going to go ahead and work that in here. Okay, and so basically we now we're going to be putting a 15% down payment, but we don't really want to put anything in there yet because we want to actually figure out how much of a buyer's repair credit we're going to need. Okay, so our interest rate is probably going to be around 6.5% and 25-year fully amortized loan. And if we have the gross rental income, or the GOI, which let's see, I think they have a pro forma, and we'll go with the effective, the 922,042. So we'll put that in here, 922,042, and we basically just want to get a quick and dirty analysis of the actual cash flow of the property. So we have our operating expenses, 507,777. That's pretty easy. So we'll put that here in the lump sum, and then we have our cash flow right here. Okay, the green obviously is always good because if it wasn't, it would be red otherwise if it was negative. And then you use the down payment assistance tab down here, which you probably can't see. And not everybody has access to my special CFE. This is my 2011 CFE that some of my students get, not everybody does. So as you can clearly see, it's showing that we are getting an 85% LTV. So the amount needed for down payment on the 15% is going to be $825. I actually lower the DPA fees. It's actually for transactional funding, just under 3%. There usually are no upfront fees. But proof of funds fees do vary, so you do need to account for that. And then you could lower your closing costs to about it's a 7%, and this is what you need to ask for on your buyer's repair credit, 1.234. Okay, so that's what you're going to be asking for as far as a buyer's repair credit, and you probably want to do that on your initial offer because, again, the seller absolutely has to have this in equity in order to be able to make this work. And if you are going to be using my specific broker to be able to broker this type of transaction, you cannot let him know that you're going to be using the DPA system. You just have to ask for your 85% LTV and then tell him you're going to be putting 15% cash down or whatever the cash is needed to be able to close this particular transaction. So I hope this helps everybody in understanding how DPA works and how to use a buyer's repair credit to get DPA to work for you.